I can kind of see how many boards are in this panel because I want to kind of cut it on the lines whenever I cut it down. And I see that it's going to be, looks like 3.5-inch boards. Here's a line. Here's a line. If I use this for the top or even the sides, it's going to have multiple pieces glued together, but that'll be all right. It's free. I'm gonna make the sides out of these pieces. I made an extra so that if I crack one of them, I can try again. I obviously don't need this part, so I'm gonna cut those off. We're gonna spray this side with water, then we're gonna wrap it in this aluminum foil, make it hot, and then I'm gonna bend it over this guitar-shaped hunk of plywood. This is a silicone heating pad. It's gonna get hot. The water is going to turn to steam, and the wood is going to turn to bendy. So I thought this might happen, but since this headboard was made of a bunch of smaller 3.5 or 4-inch boards glued together, whenever I heated it up and the steam caused the glue to fail, it looks like this one might be okay. But I'm going to try to glue this back together because this isn't wide enough for the side. So I'm going to take this all off if I can. Easy. Then I can try to get that glued back together. I went ahead and clamped it back to the mold so that it would kind of keep the same shape. I'm going to cut this leg to make some end blocks. Once the sides are glued together, I'm going to take these linings and glue them to the inside. I usually bend an extra side and then cut them on the table saw. There's probably a better way to do that, but I don't mind doing it this way. Once it's glued on, it will keep the sides more rigid and will give us some more gluing surface for the top. Okay, so this is going to be the center of my sound hole, which is going to be 4 inches. So if I go out 2 inches, that's where the sound hole is going to be, and then I'm going to make my rosette 2 1/4, and then 2 5/8 is going to be the outside. These 2 pieces were made of poplar that was stained, so I'm going to cut them into thin strips and then use them to make bracing. People always ask me what I'm doing here with these sticks. And what the purpose is, I have to glue these braces on, but I don't have a clamp that can reach all the way this far into the body. So I push this stick up against the ceiling, and then it pushes down onto the brace and holds it in place while the glue dries. So I'm carving these braces, but I really don't know what I'm doing. There is a lot of thought and research behind this, but the basic idea is I want the top to be able to vibrate as much as it can, but I also don't want it to be weak so that it'll break. So these braces are going to hold it together, but if I take some weight off of them by carving them down, then it should let the top vibrate more. Okay, so I've got my top, back glued up and braced. This is one of the legs. I think I'm gonna try to get my fretboard out of this part of it. If I look in here, I wanna avoid these holes, and I also have to avoid these metal pins when I'm cutting. So I think if I cut on this side, once I pop this guy off, I can get a chunk out of here from this face to be my fretboard. And I know that mahogany is not what you're supposed to use for a fretboard, but this is a bed, so just, okay? Sometimes when you're working with free stuff, you can't find any free ebony, but you still like to have a black fretboard, so you just have to stain it. And it might work and it might not. We're just gonna see. I think I'm gonna use this piece for the neck. Neck. Okay, so my blade doesn't go all the way through, but you can see it almost does. And then glue it on the back here, and then we've got a headstock. I always go with a bolt-on neck because I'm not skilled enough to make any other kind of necks. So put 2 holes in the top of the guitar, and then I'm going to put 2 holes in the bottom of the neck, and I'll put these inserts in there, and then I'll use these bolts to connect it all. Now I get to turn this square block of neck into a round neck, and so I'm going to use a spoke shave and a rasp to take away all of the shape that I don't want. And I'll start by just getting it down to the thickness I wanted at the top and the bottom. I'm gonna cut this leg apart and make a bridge out of it. Okay, I did a lot of measuring just now. I put this in the place that it needs to be, and I'm going to drill 2 holes in the ends so that I can put some screws in there. The screws are just going to hold it down while the glue dries eventually. But first I'm going to mask this off with tape, and I'm going to cut around it so that I can put finish on top.